My name is Tom Dunkel. The name of the book is Colorblind, the forgotten team that broke baseball's color line.
You described in the event how you happened upon, you were working on this other piece on aging, and you happened upon this obit of one of the old players who happened to have played in the Bismarck team during the same era that you ended up writing the book about, and how you wondered why this story hadn't been told. It was sort of, as it would be to most people, we all think of the color line being broken with Jackie Robinson, but in fact there was this integrated team and some other maybe less integrated teams before it. What about this story convinced you that it was not just a magazine piece or a newspaper piece, but it was actually worth a book?
Having been a feature writer, it's just an extended feature article in a way. You need a couple of things. You're always looking for people and passion, and I was looking for characters for this story. I didn't want to write a baseball history story. I'm accustomed to doing feature writing, so I was looking for a narrative, and part of a narrative is you have to have interesting people. Place was important too, I thought, and Bismarck, the town of Bismarck, almost becomes a character in this book. The joy for me as a writer, as a nonfiction writer, is the elements that you can bring to a story that are somewhat on the periphery of the narrative, but not so on the periphery that they become so extraneous or almost non sequitur information. It's digging around and finding little pieces of history and information that start ping-ponging off each other. For example, in this book, to go back to the roots of baseball and then cross over to General Custer and then find out there was a baseball team at Fort Lincoln and some of his baseball players died at the Battle of Little Bighorn, and then find out that Sitting Bull marched in a parade for the Bismarck baseball team. That sort of stuff is fascinating to me as a writer, and that just, part of it comes from having a sense in the beginning of where can you push your material. I knew there would be an element of history in here that I could work into it. Certainly I knew with Paige and Radcliffe the personality would be there. And then that sense of place of the town, but then after that, it's just as you do more research, and you can say it's luck, but Branch Rickey said that luck is a residue of design, so luck for a writer is a residue of a lot of research. So the more research you do, you unearth these little bit of nuggets and start weaving them into the narrative of the book. That's what's fun for me as a writer. I come from a generation of writer where John McPhee set the standard for nonfiction writing, and I admire McPhee's work, and I think it's Basin and Range of the quadrilogy he did about geology. I think it's the Basin and Range book, where he went into Western history as well as geology, and it's fascinating. So I was, if you want to say, a disciple of that sort of reporting, where again the joy and the fun of it is pushing the parameters of your subject matter a bit, but not pushing it too far, and finding relationships between material.
And McPhee wrote about sports, right? I
mean, certainly not just his Bradley book, but years ago, one of his famous books, and now I'm going to forget the title of it, but it's one about Arthur Ashe and Clark Graebner with the U.S. Open in '68 or '69. Right. Levels of the Game.
Levels of the Game. I believe that's right. Yeah.
Great piece of work.
But you're right. I mean, that sort of set a standard for a new way of, not just of writing, but or not new way of writing, but sort of an elevated place for writing.
At least in my case, I was trying to write a sports book that could appeal to people that maybe aren't into sports or baseball. That just the narrative and the characters would be enough to carry the day. I hope so.